Okay, we're back. What's our what
Okay,
number are we in our
we're on,
series?
I think we're on 10,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure. I asked you whether we had done one on Goddess Tara. That might have been a different one. And did we do one on Horus? I think maybe we did, and I'm not counting those, but something.
We did Horus. I believe we mentioned Tara quite a bit. I don't know if we went. Yes, we did mention her and about how she's related to the insect realm, and we dove into
Yeah,
her
that's
a
right.
little.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So today we want to talk about deities. We started with the first, or maybe it was the second, but whatever, podcast about spirits. And we talked about spirits in general, and then we had a podcast about ghosts. And now we're doing a podcast about deities. So I'm just calling these spirits deities because that's what anthropologists and historians call them. Uh, I don't know that they necessarily are that different from the other spirits. They have powers, they open worlds, they have agendas, they can make miracles happen. For example, with the Aztec goddess of running water, and it's hard to pronounce her name, Chalchiuquilic, that's probably not even close.
We tried.
For example, when I remember I was preparing for a trance session where we were going to do a trance with her, she turns people into fish. And then as fish, people experience their fishy world, and it's a metaphor for their real world, and she helps them adjust to change. It helps them figure out what's happening in their world. And so I wanted to know, I was doing a Zen meditation, and I wanted to know, okay, so how's this going to go? Is there something I need to do? What's going to happen? And spontaneously, my husband John's phone went off. It was it was about a couple feet away from him in his bag. It was like 5 minutes into the trance, and all of a sudden, after I asked this, his phone goes off in his bag with a song, which was "Party, party, we're gonna party, let's get together and party."
I like that
And then it
deity.
turned out exactly when it turned out when we did the trance session, that literally happened. There were several people who turned into fish and then were in fish parties.
So
Another
adapting
time,
to change in that message was maybe celebration, like celebrate.
celebration. And another time when I was, close friends of ours were going to leave town, very depressed about it. And the fish goddess then again, she was in my space, and then again, it was a cell phone that went off, and that I think it might have been mine, it might have been John's, I can't remember now. It just spontaneously started playing the song Spanish, Boots of Spanish Leather, which is a Dylan song about somebody goes on a trip and then you expect them to come back, but they never come back, and then they send you boots of Spanish leather, sort of as a compensation. And the message that she gave me in that was like, don't spoil your time while they're here, being sad about them being gone. Just deal with it as it is, just go with the flow of it, Spanish boots, you just go with the flow of it. That was the song. You just go with
Enjoy the moment. I was just I was just talking to someone about that before. Everything changes, everything that's the Bodhisattva teaching, right? Like it's all gonna go. Can you enjoy it right now, knowing that it's gonna go?
That's it. And enjoy it while you got it, right? Don't look back, don't look forward. But so she's really good at these electronics, and that's a part of the thing. These deities, one of the things I think that are so attractive or interesting about them is that they make these miracles happen. There's absolutely no way that these spontaneous events could be explained sort of on a physical cause level. I mean, it was just like, it just spontaneously happens,
Well,
you know?
everyone, pretty much, most people have a cell phone, and to know that, I mean, it'd be different if it was ringing, which even then I think, I hear a ding or a ring, and sometimes I think it's a spirit or a
Yeah,
deity trying to
yeah,
get out, but a specific song,
exactly.
that's just proof. That's a
It,
miracle.
it's a miracle. And also because I absolutely never played songs. My husband never played songs on his. So it wasn't like there was an app that was waiting. It found the app, found the song, flipping through, you know what I mean? It found the song, it found the app and played the song. I mean,
So this Aztec goddess, she's got some tech skills, which I'm wondering if the culture had tech skills that we didn't know
I
about.
mean,
But
these are, well, Aztecs, this is, well, actually Aztecs are the end of it, but they had a couple thousand years in Mesoamerica. So in Mexico, Central America, and through there was where they were strong. And they clearly understood about the postures because there are lots of trances that come from their postures. And this is clearly a way that they had to communicate with their deities. I don't think they had cell phones.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Doesn't seem to be that hard in that sense that it's like ephemeral. I mean, right now, what exactly is connecting us? I don't have any idea.
Isn't that fascinating? I mean, that's a totally different podcast, but it fascinates me. Like I told you, I've been turning off my cell phone at night because I found myself, most people put their phone beside their bed, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
know a lot of people that do to use it as an alarm, but I
yeah.
was getting messages from people who were texting me or Facebooking me in my dreams. So they're
Wow.
more powerful than we know. Turn those puppies off at night.
Totally, exactly. So these are, sort of the spirits I want to talk about here are ones that we experience outside the context of any religion or system of beliefs. If
Yes.
you have a religious orientation, then in that context, there are ways in which you can call your deity, or deities, plural, through mythology, of stories and all of this. But what's fascinating about these deities is that none of that is needed. There's no worship, there are no rituals, there's no religion, there's no system of beliefs. They just appear and do stuff. And that's, you can call them
But
that
they can come even if you don't call them, right? Or maybe on a subconscious level, we're
there
calling.
are, you have to have a contact. Like, I mean, some of them are in the inner world and some of them are in the outer world. So the Hindu deities, you go inside you to find them. They're on the inside of you. And the way to get those deities very, very strong, they're very, very strong, uh, is through cultivating a certain state of mind, through cultivating bliss, through sounds, mantras, visualizations, mudras, that is how you hold your hands. And then you can go inside and you can cultivate these deities. For a really long time, that was pretty much what I was doing with a lot of my religious life, was cultivating and calling from the inside, in the various chakras and something. But then I had an experience with one of these, which was a deity that lived in one of the chakras. And I don't want to give too much details about that because then the podcast won't run.
Yeah, yeah. We've learned no secret
But then,
information before it's time.
exactly. But just sort of as a, because I always like to give the cautionary tales, I called this deity, which was in one of the chakras, through the various sounds and visualizations and all of that. I thought, man, this is really cool. And it knocked me out. I
Wow.
mean, I was outside. I had just been taking a walk, and I cultivated, called, and then I went inside, and then I just felt sort of almost dizzy, and I lay down for a nap. And when I woke up from the nap, I could not remember my life. And it wasn't like amnesia, it was like disorientation. And I could hear somebody in the kitchen, and I had to think, okay, who could that be? And then I thought, well, let me think. Oh, yes, I must be married. That must be my husband, and I had to reconstruct my life from there. It was really an amazingly scary thing. I
Oh
think
my
that
gosh.
yeah, I think that deity, I think afterwards, when I thought about it, we had a podcast where we talked about the shaman, death and rebirth. I think that's one way to bring it on, was this deity gave me that death and rebirth. I had to reinvent myself from that plate. That is, that place. It isn't like I couldn't remember things. It's like I didn't, I was completely free. I wasn't attached to any of it. It was sort of like, okay, well, this is what I was doing, but I had a choice. Where in ordinary reality, you don't have a choice. You've already laid out the path. This is what I do. This is who I am. This is where I go. This deity just knocked that all out, gave me complete freedom, and it was truly scary. And I stopped doing that then. I decided, okay, I got it. This is weird stuff, right? And so I still taught people the mantras and various things, but I didn't want to show them those doors.
And that specific deity too is
That specific deity, exactly.
power for rebirth, which might have been, even though it was scary, do you think that, I mean, so you're saying it's a warning, but do you think that we can call on, I mean, that almost sounded at first like a possession. I would have been scared, like, wait, is it really me? How did you know what was going on?
Yeah, well, because it's hard to explain unless you go there, but you can feel it. It's not a possession. It was a liberation. It
Ooh.
was like I woke up clean. It was like I had no ties. And saying, okay, and the kitchen is my husband. I could have decided at that point, I don't feel like living with a husband. You
Sounds a
know,
lot like a midlife crisis, what I've been.
yeah, that's totally, totally.
I
Only
think this
without
happens around 42. I'm preparing for
totally without the shame or the guilt or any of that, right?
the
You just
liberation
go.
behind the deity. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
totally. But what I'm saying is that and Krishna is unbelievably strong, over the top, and Shiva over the top. These are just absolutely incredibly strong deities. Whether things happen, and it's just really, really strong.
so. If you
So
do the mantras, I have the Shiva mantra on my table right now. If you do the mantras, you have to be careful or know what you're doing.
that's right. And so that's the idea, is that when you just when people think, oh, this is, I guess I've said this lots of times, this is just fun party
It's
thing.
fun, something to do.
Exactly, it's actually much more than that.
Right, have to be careful.
You can really, really screw yourself if you're not careful with it. So I wouldn't advise going there. And in that way, the inner deities, in my experiences, are stronger, more, in that sense, more terrifying, but yet more, you know, working than the outer ones. And an example of one that you can get both ways is Goddess Tara. So Goddess Tara is an inner deity. You catch her through the mantra and visualizations, but she can be done also as an outer deity through the trance posture. Except when we do that, we also have to do her mantra because she's on the inside. So she's not going to come from just doing the rattle trance. It'll be very weak. She's not called because she's inside. You have to go inside to call her. And so we do that by saying the mantra. We do say the mantra and have the visualization, and then we can call her. And as you know, she's very strong and does all kinds of stuff, and as you mentioned, exactly, big, exactly. And it's possible that some of these other inner deities can be called in that way, but I wouldn't advise it. because Goddess Tara is extremely compassionate. She loves all beings as a mother. You know, she's helpful. She wants to do you a favor. Whereas some of these other ones, that's not where they're coming from at all. they're
On them. I mean, they're there. Those deities. It can't be all. Or I'm sure there's a time when someone needs
oh, for
Krishna.
sure. Like the one I mentioned, if you want to have a shaman death rebirth, that would be the one to call on. And the one in the different chakras have different realities, so to speak, that they are holding. And if you open them, that opens that window in your physical reality as well as your inner reality. That's the strength of the mantras, and that's the religious practices then within the yoga Hindu interface. So sometimes people do yoga, and then like I remember my brother would do yoga, and then the yoga teacher would say, oh well, and this deity is associated with this posture or something, and people, haha, yeah, oh sure, haha, that's interesting, that's cute, that's another culture. But if you were to actually literally do that as it's intended in its history, then that deity would come forth. So they're very, very strong practices. And what all I was catching was what I could do with them outside that context. And even outside that context, they were just extremely beyond strong. Now, the outer deities, I'm calling outer and inner just by how they're approached. We call them with the posture and with the altar in a sacred space in the right direction. The direction is extremely important. I had no idea about that when I first started to do these practices, that it was important which direction you called them and that they were in a location. I knew that the inner ones were in a location, but okay, your internet connection is unstable. It just said on my screen, but not the ones, I can see you. If you can't hear me,
I can hear
tell
you.
me.
Good.
So, but these are also outside. I'm now talking about them outside any religion or system of beliefs, just through the posture. And this is about their mythology.
Okay.
But normally, a lot of the people who get off have never heard.
We've got a mysterious. I gotta stop you for a second because we've got a deity. We've got a spirit who's messing with us.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, really, I know. We got to be careful not to say the wrong things here.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's going really slow, and then your voice is getting really fast. I've never heard that before. So, there. I just wanted to let you know so we can take a pause and see what was going on there because I've never seen that happen before, and I feel like a rush of there's someone
Energy, right? There's energy, right?
yeah,
Yeah. They're listening, and I mean,
they're excited. Probably.
right. So they, outside that context, they have different functions. And this was a big surprise to me. I had no expectations of this sort. They're vehicles. And so Horus, for example, is a vehicle. You can ride Horus somewhere. You either, you turn into a hawk or an owl. And then if you have a location in your mind, you can travel there. And we talked about that in that podcast that we talked about Horus in. So you can travel with Horus as an owl, and they're all complicated. It's not like Greek and Roman deities, which are just stories. They're stories. This is independent of any story. Nobody told anybody, oh, guess what? There's this myth, there's this myth. People just ride, they turn into hawks, they turn into owls, and they go somewhere.
Wait, does that mean that you can't contact like in my hair like in the Viking heritage there's
Yeah.
Thor and or there's all these different deities. They're still real deities, right? We just don't call them.
If we knew how, we could call them.
Okay.
If we, but it may not be true that we can call them outside the religious context that they were in. These deities that we call can be called outside any belief system. I mean, I have no idea what the Egyptians believed about this. It doesn't matter. Or the Aztecs, about their goddesses. It doesn't matter what they believed, but it may be to get Thor, although I've had somebody take a trance once and get Thor, but in order to get Thor, you have to know where he is, and that channeling might require the religious belief system,
I see what you're
to
saying.
specify that. And for example, in the Judeo-Christian religion, I don't think that there's any place in there where they have like show you postures that you could take to get that deity, uh, or the sounds, except in a religious context.
But I think they're inner world because those deities came to me, years ago. There was
Yes,
Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, there's all the
yes,
Lilith. So there are deities in that, but
yes.
they're not attached to the religion and they came to me. So I think they might be inner.
That's it. That's it. And Mary, I talked about it in a different trance. I mean, the Virgin Mary has come to me as well. I'm not a Christian. I think these deities, one of the things Christianity did was incorporate local spirits into their pantheon as saints and so on. That's what the Catholics did, which was the first version of this, of their religion. And I think they can be, they can be uh, uh, accessed external to that. Or for example, my mother had the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard? Yes, she had a big adventure with that deity. She was a deity, and then when the Catholic Church converted the Aztecs, they took over even the land that was sacred to her and built a temple, a church on that, and then they just reclaimed her. They claimed her, but but they have a shrine which is there, which has a miracle attached to it. And the story is about somebody from the old religion then worshiping her as the old goddess. And she says, well, it's a new time, so I have a new name. So to get to me, you have to go this other way. You can get to her, but in that case, you get to her through an image,
Wow.
and that's the idolatry. There's a commandment against idolatry in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not worship any. They shall not make a graven image and all of this stuff, right? And the Catholics leave that out because they use images in their religious practices. But that was the oldest way to contact deities. But even without the image, we can contact them through this substitute, which is through the postures.
Mm-hmm.
Because through the image, you need to know their name. You need to be able to call them. And like I said in another podcast, the name is really, really important. You need to know their name. And we don't remember their names. And like in the case of these Aztec deities, we might try to call them in their name, but who knows how to pronounce it.
You know the name, but how do you say it?
How do you say this? I don't know. And is this their true name, right? This is the true name. We don't know the true name. So I'm sure that you've been approached by those now Christian faces, because they have a universality. And
Yeah.
like you say, they're probably on the inside. And that's probably part of your heritage in your reincarnation self
Mm-hmm.
as a priestess, as female. You're very female oriented in that way. And this is part of the female. These are the female voices that come through you. And
Yes.
so I would say that you've figured out how to reach those, but somebody else might not be able to. because they might not have that connection. You have a deep connection that probably spontaneously, right?
Yeah, it was very spontaneous through writing. But though
Yeah.
I remember sitting on my back porch, I used to do tobacco medicine, smoke cigarettes when I was younger. So it was about 10 years ago. I'm smoking my cigarette on the back porch, and I heard it. And when I don't hear a voice. I hear it like it's
Yeah.
someone speaking into my mind.
Yeah.
And I could, and she came around the corner, and though I couldn't see her, I could feel her. And she said, "I'm Lilith." And I was like, "Oh, you were really intense." I'm not, and that was my reaction in my mind was, "Whoo, she's really intense." And then there was connected to Lilith is, people call him Jesus, but he said, "My name isn't Jesus. My name is Yeshua." And I would be writing in my journal, and then I'd write something out, and I go, "What was that?" And I would write, who is this?" And he would say, "It's Yeshua. I'm back to teach you." Because I think a lot of the things he wanted to get out were misconstrued, or so.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. That's right. The religion has become institutionalized, and in that way, it's kind of drifted from those core ideas.
yeah.
And I'm sure in your case too, I mean, 10 years ago, you probably also had this, okay, am I crazy? I mean, is this crazy? And that's one of the things that we have to tell people. You listen. You don't necessarily do what they tell you. You listen, you listen, and it becomes revealed, right? Some of these are true voices with spirits. That's right. That's right. And so these outer deities are like they have various different things that they do that we can do, like like Horus takes you somewhere, the jaguar takes you somewhere, you take that shape, and then it guides you through your own personal darkness. You were in that trance session, I think, where we did that most recently. Unbelievably strong.
Our last one, the
Yeah,
Land of the Dead one, yeah,
yeah.
that was very strong.
Wasn't that? Yeah.
That was almost stronger than a lot of the in-person ones.
Oh, no, that's not what I'm talking about. The jaguar.
Oh, the Jaguar one, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was a very primal one where I felt it was a lot about our primal animal instincts.
Yes, and our personal darkness that we have trouble facing, and the jaguar gives you the strength to walk through that, to face that, to come to terms with that. And so that's like a vehicle, though. You take that shape, and for years and years, when I did the jaguar with people, I did it because it's easy. It's easy for people to get off in that posture. And even when I was doing it before I knew about having a sacred space and all of that, people could still turn into jaguars. Jaguar was there for them. But I had no idea that it meant anything. It was just like, oh, that's interesting. Now I'm a jaguar. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting. It was
Call it get
strange.
off, because it's true.
Yeah.
So people are afraid when they first do trance postures. I think sometimes they're not going to get off. They're not going to get to see the.
That's right. And they don't, exactly, they don't even realize, right? That, I mean, like one lady, oh gosh, she was embarrassed afterwards to talk because she said, oh, I don't know what's wrong with me. My tongue is so big and I've got such big ears. And I go, okay. But those are vehicles. And another thing that you can do is channeling. And that's the inner ones do that well. And I'm sure you channel the deities that you were talking about, Lilith and so on. You channel them. And Goddess Tara, you channel her, and she has an agenda, and then you become a vehicle. She fills you with her purpose, and then she speaks through you or acts through you, and you do her thing. I also had the Aztec goddess of purification. So she's the Tlaloc. I'm not even close to pronouncing her.
We'll post the book so everyone can go in and look at the trance posture book and see the words.
and see the word. And she has hounds that come with her, and they eat your emotional filth, and they give advice on how to avoid regret. She forgives you and she cleanses you. She sucks all of that nastiness, that emotional nastiness, the guilt, the regret. She's a patron saint of adulterers.
I loved that trance, by the way. I remember we all smelled the filth, though.
That's
That's
it.
my big memory was
Yeah.
in most trances, you know, there's always a sense, an extra sensory experience for me.
That's right. It's
Smell.
yeah. Oh yeah, all the filth, and she loves it. She just sucks it up. But I know several times when I was kind of coming into, I mean, these deities, they start to be active in my space for some time before the trance, and sometimes they continue after the trance when I'm leading the trance sessions. I mean, they become very strong. And I was going to do a trance session in a couple of days, and we went over to some friend's house, and for some mysterious reason, they were into confessing all of their guilt, feeling guilty about things and their regrets. And
Because
I
the deity was there with you.
hound sucking up the filth, you know. Oh, and like the story that I tell in the Calling Spirits book, you know, where I had this lady visit me and she wanted to contact this guy that she wanted to have an affair with, you know, but he had a wife and all. I mean, it was messy, and she really wanted me to facilitate this. You know, it was like the adulteress, you know, the adulteress, and I could just feel the goddess there. You know, she said, "Oh, suck it up, you know."
I brought my
Well,
dogs. Let's do
and
this.
I didn't, I very carefully avoided, because she also loves you like she's your best friend, you know, and the goddess hugs you and forgives you and sympathizes with you and gives you advice. And she was whispering to me things to tell this lady that she really shouldn't mess with this guy, you know.
Right.
It was really something. But that was strange to be channeling her, you know. And then protection, and to the goddess Tara, and we talked about that, you know, she does that through the insects. You know, you got to watch what you ask her for, but she'll give you protection, but it may not be exactly how you imagined. Like the story I told is I asked for protection, and then these bees moved into our front porch, in the wall of our front porch, so that anybody who came on the porch got stung, except for me and the mailman.
That is just wild. Talk about miracles again. It's like,
Totally, exactly. And but then there's another protection god, the Hawaiian god Ku, and I don't think you've done that trance. It's a dragon trance. He's a god of war, and people turn into dragons. And what's most amazing about that is it's comes instantly, and it wasn't like I knew that was what was going to happen. We completely got the posture wrong. We thought we were in the right posture for a mother goddess trance.
wait, you thought you were a mother goddess and everyone turned into dragons?
We were cultivating bliss, and we were doing the mother goddess, and I was going to do a mother goddess trance. And in that trance, you're supposed to put your hands on your hips, and I just had them turning their hands in instead of out. And in that posture, when you turn your hands the right way, the wrong way for a mother goddess, you know, and where I start rattling, and then they start moving around. And one guy fell against the wall, and he was still in the trance. I mean, he didn't break out of the trance. He was still trying to hold the posture. They had a great time. They loved it.
Right.
All of them, they turned into fire-breathing dragons, and had warfare with each other. And one person was there who had issues about violence with his father when he was a child, and he re-experienced that, but now he was a dragon. And so when his father beat him, he could beat his father back, and he had that choice. And then he chose not to. And that was his revelation, that if he had the power, he would not do that. And so he didn't need to stop. He was always afraid you know, that maybe he had that in him because his father was so mean and so violent, and that proved it to him that no, when he had the power, he could not do that. He understood not to do that. Instead, he felt pity for his father instead of that, the rage, you know. So it was very helpful for people.
That sounds super healing. It sounds like the dragon deals with another primal human instinct, which is like rage and war.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Dragons are really they're almost, yeah, so dragons are deities themselves, right? Like is that like a realm, dragons? I've always been
Yeah.
I actually have a dragon tattoo. I'm kind of
Oh,
fascinated.
is that right? Well, sometime we'll have to do a dragon trance and see what happens to you in that trance. I
Ooh.
mean, and it's interesting too, because this is a volcano deity. He's associated with a certain mountain that's a volcano, you know. I mean, I don't know how active it is now, but it's a volcano. I think it might even still be active. I'm not sure. And it's a guardian. He's a guardian spirit, you know, so you can invoke him as a guardian. But we didn't know any of this. But dragons in the mythology of Hawaii don't breathe fire. They're just lizards. It's the fire-breathing dragons apparently come from other mythologies, not from their mythology. And yet, and nobody believed in dragons. I mean, it isn't like they turned into dragons because they believed in dragons. They got taken over. Again, it was a vehicle, you know. It was like, now you're a dragon and now you have all the power in the world, you know, and now you can just do whatever you want. And like John experienced it as he was a fire breathing dragon, and then he was attacking and eating villagers, and then he decided that wasn't very nice. And so then he started,
But he had
then
to try it.
he had to try it first. Then he started protecting the villagers from other
Oh.
dragons.
And this
So
sounds like
they
a
were
really
dragons.
healing trance for.
Exactly, for that level, how to control violence, what to do with violence, how to channel it. And this is the era. I mean, this is an era
I was
where
gonna
that's,
say, I feel like this would be really helpful for a lot of
yeah,
people right
that's right, that's right, that's right. And healing, you know, medicine bear, you know, comes and heals.
now. Love Medicine Bear. It's one of my
You've
favorites.
done that one, right? You've done that one. And so these deities are available to us. uh, they're available to us uh, through the trances without any religion.
Yeah.
They are, and that's part of the sense in which they are real. You know, they don't seem to be in our space. They seem to need a door. We need a door to find them. So they don't live here. But they can be called in here. And they're not in our time either. So, for example, with the goddess of the goddess of purification, for example, whose name I can't pronounce, she at first I put the altar in one direction, I think in the water direction, because it's like a steam bath. And then she came to me, and as a vision, a week or so before I was going to do another trance. And I thought, well, that's weird. I mean, what is this woman? And she was like in this cotton knee to goes to the knee sort of tunic thing, like you would wear in a sweat lodge or a steam bath.
Mhm.
She came to me, and I'm thinking, what is this? Because the goddess had never come before. It was always the hounds, and I thought that was the goddess. So then, when I was putting together the trance in person, when I was laying everything out, I accidentally put the altar in the wrong direction. That is, in the right direction for her, and in the fire direction. And then she came to everybody, or most people also got the goddess herself. And
Rather than
then
the
she,
hounds.
rather than just the hounds. So, and at that point, so she came to me in advance before I had put the altar in the wrong place. So she was, it was temporarily out of sync. It was like she was there before she was called,
Mhm.
you know,
They
or
seem to come
it
into
was,
you before you call, before, as soon as you decide that we're gonna purchase that vehicle or get that vehicle and we're gonna go to that realm, they're
yeah,
like, hey, I heard you might be dropping by for a visit.
yeah. And there she is, even though I didn't know that. I didn't even know she existed. You know,
Because you've only seen the hounds.
I'd only seen the hounds. I had no idea.
So this is a really, I want to just take a 1 second to say this is a really important thing because I know a lot of new medicine
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
listening. And as you hear us talk about, like, making mistakes can be really, really, really uncomfortable. So you can learn some from us and from
yeah,
Susan's experiences. And you also have to trust mistakes that it's not always the same thing every time. It's not like when you talk about dogma, I think of like, oh well, we're gonna do this ritual, so it has to be this and this. It
yes.
has to be organic, and that's where intuition comes in, right?
Absolutely, exactly. And that's where the shaman skills come in.
Yeah.
The people who want to be shaman or feel like they are shaman in their temperament, though they have to develop their intuitions. And that's part of what the trances help you do, so that they can make those decisions, because everything is changing and moving. It's always different. And you have to move with it and change with it and do the things that make sense in that moment. That
Yeah.
it's not, and that's again another difference between these practices and the religious practices, because in religious practices you always do it the same way.
Right.
But in these practices, yeah, sometimes we do it this way, sometimes we do it that way. You know, I make a mistake that turns out to be exactly the right thing, and I had no idea. You know, exactly.
Yeah, like
That's
I put the Tara, I for some reason heard that the directions wrong, and then I put the Tara altar in the wrong spot, but I think I still got exact. I mean, she kept coming in the
which
direction.
well, well, and with Goddess Tara, the where you put the altar, the direction of the altar tells you which version of the goddess you get. So you would still get the goddess. Which direction? Do you remember which direction you put the altar?
Which direction do we normally put the altar?
I think I'd have to look it up, but I think I normally put her in the east. But
Yeah, let me see. So or no, I thought it was I,
maybe it was the west. See, I can't remember now.
yeah,
Maybe, yeah, you're right. It would have been the west. That's right. And you probably put her in the east.
actually, I put her in I believe this is the north.
In the north. Well, that's interesting. Then you could see what her aspect was, because it may be that you got white Qatar. She's got different aspects, and each direction gives you a different aspect.
Yeah, yeah. I think someone told me once, or I read she has 84 aspects.
At least.
Maybe.
Well, and what was fascinating when we did her Zoomishly, which I don't think any of you knew about, and it didn't occur to me until later either, was that Goddess Tara is a female form of Avalokiteshvara who has 1,000 eyes. And Goddess Tara has an eye in each of her palms. And that never appears in a face, never in all of my time doing Goddess Tara face to face. Never has anybody experienced the eyes. But when we did the Zoom, people were getting lots of eyes.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, this is a year to 2020 has been a year I mean, the eyes to me, when I think about that, it represents seeing so many different parts of a situation. I mean, we're at a precipice of time where people see A and B, and
Yeah.
two eyes, you've got to see C, D, E, F, G. When I read people, when I go in and tap in, I'm like, I almost always say, well, this is very multifaceted. If we go over here, I see this, I see this, I see this, so can you imagine looking at one situation or even one person, someone you love, with
Yeah.
1,000 different eyes? That's beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, what a metaphor. I mean, but what's fascinating about these things is people saw this without any knowledge at all of Goddess Tara or that of this connection in the eyes. And yet that's what they experience. It shows the reality of it. You know, these deities appear, and I think the Zoom is really strong. Like you said, the ancestor trance was stronger, almost stronger than, I mean, it was as strong to stronger as what we do in person for people.
Yeah, it
Which
really
was amazing.
it really is.
And one of the people, only three of the people didn't have a strong trance, and one of them later told me, well, she didn't have the altar. She had the altar in the
Mm-hmm.
northeast as opposed to the east. I mean, northwest as opposed to the west. And that the ancestor trance, very important that it's exactly the west. Even in person, I've noticed that somebody who's slightly turning one side doesn't get it. You really have to, and all of the myths to the degree that we're following them say it's in the west, which is the setting sun. I mean, there's a
I was
logic to
just
it.
hearing that in my head. I was like, which I'm so bad that I don't know that, but I was like, that's the setting sun ending, where that
Yeah,
would make so
ending. So it's that's the logic of it, right? That makes so much sense, you know. Uh, so these things are
much
real, and,
going down into the underworld.
oh, exactly, yeah, yeah. So they're there for us, and we can contact them, of course, always with respect. They're very, very strong.
Should we let them contact us first? Or, I mean, like me, I don't really think like, ooh, who do I want to contact? It almost seems like they telephone us first. Is that true, or does it go both ways?
Well, I mean, it goes both ways to the degree that I know when I do the trances with people, the deity comes to me and says, my turn.
What I thought.
but
Feels like
but
that's
then people are attracted to it.
okay.
People come, like again, with the jaguar. I mean, my goodness, we had Mexicans, remember that one guy who he was so in his native culture as opposed to in Western culture that he did it in a squat. I
That's
mean,
right.
you remember that?
We had all kinds of new people who had never come before, and yeah, indigenous.
They just, and right, new people, those comedians who were in town for a gig, who saw it. I've had people from Goddess Tara who come to that trance who were just passing by in the hallway, heard me talking about it to somebody and came. So once somebody came who literally off the street, they were passing the studio when we were starting the trance and just felt compelled to come in.
There's no
So
mistake.
they call.
They
Yeah.
do. You know who calls me a lot is Ganesh, and I know that's a Hin. Or no, I do not know. Let me correct myself. I think that's a Hindu guy, but boy, and a lot of the women who have been in the New Era Academy, that guy comes through for a lot of people. So I don't know. I know the only thing I know about this deity is he's a removal of obstacles. He does have a chant, which I know, but he seems a little less intense than some of the other ones.
Yeah. I mean, how did you, it was, again, I think that's the question to ask too, is sort of like, did he come to you or did you go to him?
It's
Because if
kind
he
of
came
like
to you, it's okay. But if you went to him, you have to think about it. You know what I mean?
it's to think about if it's the ego going to, right? Like my
Exactly.
ego's like,
Exactly.
I want to play with the Krishna, and you're like, don't do it, Don. But no,
Exactly.
Ganesh comes. I mean, now he's such a popular deity. He's all over T-shirts. He's all over posters. But he comes like, say, my friends will just be like, hey, I just made a Ganesh altar, and then that same day, someone goes, have you ever heard of the Ganesh chant? I mean, to me, that's the
Yeah,
deity saying,
yeah.
hello, I'm around. And it will be like, it's kind of like the way I work with spirit animals. I know an animal is spirit frequency, because I see these all as frequencies, right? Like Yeshua is
Yeah.
a frequency, Krishna is a frequency. Like they're all frequencies, whether
Yeah,
they're an outer vehicle or an inner, they
yeah,
have a certain vibe to them, and animals do too, right? Like I have a
yeah,
cat,
yeah.
dog,
Oh, for
the
sure.
dog's lovey, the cat's like, I'm from outer space. But you know, there's a frequency really with Ganesh that seems to be wanting to work with people, and it makes sense if it's removing obstacles because we have so many right now,
Oh,
right?
for sure. And beginnings, right? Good with beginnings. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I mean, that's a deity that is inside a religious context,
Mhm.
and it's a religious context that is active now.
Mm.
So there'll be how do you say it's there's more. It's not going to be the fresh, like when we go in the trance to these deities, we've got no expectations, so to speak, very low expectations, and then it's, oh my god, we don't have any mythology that'll cause us to think one thing. But with Ganesh, you know, okay, well, this is what he's supposed to be about, and this is the kind of thing that people experience with him. You know, also words, so that he's Hindu, so he's in the inside, opens doors inside, right? So if you know that he opens inner doors, then you have to know that those are doors you want to have opened.
Be prepared for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be prepared for that,
I
right?
get a felt sense that he does the work, does a lot of work for you. Do some deities kind of like some deities expect maybe more than others, but this one's kind of like lay your load down. This is what it feels.
You have to treat them with respect, offerings, and and so on. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
And next time we were gonna do, you suggested protection and what and divination. That's what I remember. Is that right? Is that what you suggested?
Boy,
Cleansing.
my brain's not been working on top game lately, but yeah, definitely protection. You know, we have a whole generation of, well, half the world is waking up, right? The sorting, it's probably not 50-50
I
per
know,
se,
that's
but
right.
it's
The
close.
sorting.
Half the world is waking up, and we talked a little bit about protection today, you know, like using your intuition, not your ego mind, but there's so many things, you know, if people are gonna, I just see all these young women starting to practice witchcraft or shamanism or in divination, and they're not fully they don't know what they're calling in, they don't know how to clear. You know, you taught me that the way that I was going out to sea was going to make me sick. I'll forever thank you for that, because now that I know how to not use a vehicle and go out to sea, but to see within, I'm much more healthy and grounded. So
Okay.
this is stuff that, again, we don't, people don't have to learn the hard way, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's what we'll talk about next time. Protection, divination, and we'll see if we can't pass some of those messages.